I wanted to talk a little bit about intuition today and how important it is in being successful, whether that be, being successful in your health or in your business or in relationships, that really intuition is one of the key kind of secret ingredients in massive success. And all of the most successful people that I know, and I don't mean just a little bit successful, but most successful people I know have all had a very highly developed intuition, and they know what it is. And so for some of us, though, we might not know what our intuition is, or not rate it, or we might even know what it is but sometimes ignore it. And that's probably something that I think most of us can relate to. And what always gets me, though, is how, when we ignore our intuition, and the results of that are always bad. And hopefully, we're the type of people who can learn from that to actually start listening to our intuition. But what is it? And one of the things that I, in the past, have found really difficult, and even currently sometimes still find really difficult, is distinguishing the difference between intuition and just the mind and just the thoughts. Especially if you're prone to fear or anxiety, because sometimes, I remember a time when I was getting on an aeroplane. This is a long time ago. One of the first flights, and I was freaking out, thinking that the plane's going to crash. And then I said to myself, it's just a fear. And then I thought, oh my God, what if that's intuition? And I'm sure so many of you have also had this situation where you're really asking yourself, is this intuition, or is this built up fear from the past experiences that I've had, or just whatever's going on in my mind? And I'd love to hear from other people, how do you tell the difference between your intuition and just your mind, or your fear or your anxiety? And it's taken me a really long time to work that out. And even still, sometimes I ignore my intuition, but rarely these days. But it's one of those things, like, I remember recently, somebody that I know was having to employ, a new person. They expanded their business and they needed to employ somebody new, and they were finding it hard to find the right person. But then they found someone, and they gave her the job. And when I spoke to them about it, I said, what's she like? And he didn't really, she ticked all the boxes, but he was a bit, and I questioned him on it, and he said, yeah, I just don't know if she's a right fit. And this is a really good example of not trusting our intuition, and not trusting it because it doesn't make sense. Anyway, fast forward down the track, the trial period is almost over, and he was very, very glad to let this person go because she just didn't fit the workplace culture, and she was really dragging everything down. About a month later, he re-interviewed and rehired, and he's very happy with the person. Now, this wasn't it didn't take a massive hit in his business, but it did a little bit. That was like 6 weeks that he can't get back, and all the time that he had to put into finding somebody. But and this is someone who actually knows his intuition. So this happens, and it happens often. It happens a lot in relationships too, where we might meet somebody and they're great on paper, but something inside us tells us they're wrong, and we don't listen to it. And then, down the track, we see what it was all about. But so why don't we listen to our intuition? This has happened to me with my health, where I've known that I need something and to support my health. And for me, I've ignored that intuition because it meant, I'm sitting here by the Yarra River. It's so beautiful. A beautiful big duck just went for a dive. I've ignored my intuition around my health because what it meant was having to ask for help for some of my needs. And, I really judged myself for that, feeling like, oh, I should be better than this, and I'm being too needy and too dependent, and I'm an independent woman. And so I talked myself out of it, or talked myself into thinking that I was just being over the top, or too much, or whatever it is. And I suffered for it greatly. And, for me now, I have a family, so when I suffer, my whole family suffers. So I've made a decision for myself in life, and that is to always listen to my intuition. And knowing, I've spent a lot of time trying to work out, how do I know the difference between just what's just my mind or fear and what's my intuition. And I'd love to know, I'd really love to know what other people do, and how you can tell the difference between your intuition and your fear or anxiety or your mind. And for me, it's got to do with physicality and state. So yeah, I feel it in my body in a particular way, and when it's the mind or anxiety, it feels different. I also feel it in my body, but and it feels very different. And the other thing is the state that it gives me. When it's intuition, there's no external chatter. There's no chatter around it, and it is in alignment. So I have a particular sensation and feeling and experience. For me, when I'm intuition, I feel an alignment. So all from right up here all the way down through my body, there's an alignment, and I feel that is connected to something greater than myself. That's the surefire where I know I'm onto it. And sometimes when my intuition tells me something and it's in alignment and it's true and it's right and it is my intuition, and I don't agree with it in my head, it's a battle. It's a real battle. And what I've been learning in my life and what I've been applying in my life is doing it anyway, because my commitment isn't to being liked or fitting in. My commitment is to my genius and bringing my gifts into this world that I've been put here to bring into the world. And so my commitment is to that thing that is much greater than myself, and that's what makes me always go with intuition, even if it means this person might judge me, or I might not fit in here, or I might be ostracized, I may no longer get invited to things or something like that. I trust it because I know that there's a greater power that has a greater vision for me, and that's what I'm committed to. And it always, 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 bar no times, it always gives me the goods. It always brings me to a greater success in whatever it is that I'm focusing on. So yeah, so intuition. This is a really good reminder for me to listen to my intuition again and more and every day. And hopefully this has inspired you to reconnect with your intuition. And as I said, I really would love to hear what other people do for being able to determine the difference between the mind and intuition. The sun's coming through now, and I'm going to walk back home. Lots of love to you all.